Welcome to Keeping Score. I'm Rick Horrow. Each week we bring you insights from the playmakers, deal makers, and rule makers in the world of sports. I'll give you my take on some of the items of the week using my 30 years of experience doing deals for teams, leagues, and players in the $750 billion business of sports. Plus, we'll talk with a central figure in the sports world. The views expressed in this podcast are my own and do not represent the views of Reuters. Let's get started. Keeping Score, it's that time again. Yeah, the holiday cheer. We'll talk about what happened in 2016 and beyond in 17. That's a later conversation for a later day. Just coming out of the winter meetings, we're heading into the fourth quarter of the NFL season. Heisman done. Are there too many bowls? We'll deal with all of that eventually. But the guy who I really enjoy opening presents with under the tree, we don't do that at all. Hi, Dan.
No, we should, though.
Dan Colarusso.
We should.
Not bad.
Could it be a palm tree down where you live as opposed to whatever we grow natively in Brooklyn?
Well, you don't grow anything natively, and if you do, it's in the summer because I'm up here in Boston where it's about to be 7 degrees. So everybody who's listening on the sound of my voice, get some earmuffs on, okay, ladies and gentlemen, because it's brutal. It's brutal out there. But the one thing that's not brutal were the baseball winter meetings. So, winners and losers, baseball wins. They're a $13 billion industry. Rob Manfred does it again. 30 years of labor peace. The home team no longer is decided by who wins the All-Star game, which is another win.
A seminal moment for baseball fans, I'd say.
Yeah. What do you think? We'll do loser in a minute, but what's your biggest winner out of the winter meetings?
Wow. Again, local boy, I'll give you a little home cooking. I love the Cespedes move by the Mets because they act like a big market team, and they've been accused of not doing that in the past. But there's the balance of they didn't get rid of Jay Bruce or Granderson. So I think a lot of teams are in that situation. There wasn't, outside of a few big names, there wasn't the usual rat-a-tat-tat of trades and free agent signings. And I think everybody has done move one, and they're waiting on move two, right?
Yeah, and that would be my loser.
Who did you like?
My loser's the bottom third of the league or of baseball because, the rat-a-tat-tat implies that people will trade up, trade down, trade their prospects, and you don't see a whole lot of teams down at the bottom all of a sudden getting good, getting healthy. Houston did a little bit. The Yankees with Chapman, made it interesting yet again. The signing of closers was good.
The signing of closers this was a year. This was like a bull market in closers, right?
Yeah, right.
And you know who I like though, and sitting back, and we won't see it this year. We may not see it next year, but I got to think the White Sox just built a strong foundation. I mean, they got rid of Sale, they got rid of Eaton, and they got prospects. They got good prospects back.
Yeah. So the White Sox will be good in 2023. So congratulations to them. I will tell you.
You sound like a Cubs
maybe
fan.
Earlier.
You sound like a Cubs fan. I would say, the way baseball's going now, I'd like to see them. I think they make a run in 2019. 19. You may be right. And listen, Chris Sale is great, but you got to have some guys around him. And now the Red Sox. Well, let's see what happens with them. Luckily you're a Met fan, so the Yankees they get Chapman and the Red Sox get Sale, so it's an arms race. Your point, though, by the way, is very perceptive that one shoe dropped, but we're waiting for the second shoe. Yeah.
It'll probably happen before spring training opens up. But I'll tell you what the other shoe is. Congratulations, Chicago Cub fans. There is a lump of coal under your stocking or in your stocking as well. First of all, you win the first time in 108 years. So what do we have? You get ticket prices increased by 19.5% on average, 31% for premium seats, and about 6% for upper deck seats. Now, upper deck at Wrigley Field isn't upper deck because it's like right behind second base. But still, it's a big deal. And so what does the market bear? The Cubs did it because they can.
Yeah, I mean, that's some, kind of kick. We finally won. Grandpa got to see the Cubs win. And now he's going to have to trade his prescription meds to get money for his tickets next year. I mean, look, they have a lot of big tickets on the Cubs. This year they have a lot of big tickets. They have Theo Epstein, who they have to pay. The organization it's expensive to be a winner, and it's more expensive to stay a winner, and that's what they're dealing with now. Like, they've set the expectation, and they expect to win a couple of times in the next 5 years, and it's going to cost money to do that. And I think it's interesting. Luckily, I guess people can go to White Sox games for a couple of years if they need a day in the sun.
Well, yeah, but here it's you and I both know this. It's Adam Smith, the one economic class that I decided not to skip. And the bottom line is it's a free market. So during regular season, StubHub says the average ticket was 96% above face for the Cubs.
Wow.
And postseason, 670% above face.
Right.
So I guess the management deserves a little bit of a break for attempting to capitalize and monetize. The issue I have, I guess, is this is a time where everybody else increases their ticket prices as well.
Right.
There's enough baseball right there where people didn't automatically look at their wallet, but there's not the immediate remembrance of how a team sucks. The Blue Jays went up about 23%, but they did it variably, so a lot of the games are going up more than other games. So at least
did they really?
They
did it on like a variable price. I'm not familiar with it. They did it on a variable pricing, like gold, silver, bronze kind of thing.
Yeah, and the bronze would be like the bottom 5 teams in the league get the series decreased 6%.
Right.
So everybody's excited about the decrease. But then, the Red Sox coming in, and when the Cubs come in, it's an astronomical increase. But at least they're understanding there is some difference in value because the team that is the marquee team is going to be worth more to go see. So that's an interesting trend.
Right. Well, I guess the Cubs, seeing themselves as the champs, are the marquee team in every game they play. So pay up. Chicago does have a special love affair with the Cubs. And it goes to cities and families, and how do you keep that feeling and loyalty alive across generations when it's too expensive to take a kid to a game if he's going to get bored at the 6th inning, or the concession stand is going to be so expensive. Like, how does that intergenerational thing happen and secure the economic base of the team? Well, the economic bases are shifting, I guess, and that makes it a different equation. So we can look at ticket prices, but we can also look at other revenue streams. But again, you and I wanted to talk about Detroit today, another great Midwestern city, and the Pistons moving back after being in the suburbs for so long, moving back to the city as the urban hub has become a viable, vibrant place for sports teams. And I think it's a great story because I'm old enough to remember when the Pistons left for Auburn Hills and how wrenching that was for a city. And it's on the rebound. Detroit is on the rebound in general. And I think the Pistons stepping in there is a really, really terrific move for the team.
Well, and here's what it takes. Yeah, no, but I'm sorry to interrupt because I get passionate about all this because, I spent 90 years doing this in my life. And here's what it takes. It takes vision from guys who don't need to make the last buck and are willing to take some risk. So I was in the boardroom when Bill Ford Jr. was making a decision about whether to stay out in the suburbs. Remember when the Pontiac Silverdome was being built, and then do you come back and build Ford Field downtown? He made a decision. We may lose some dollars in the short term. We're not going to get development opportunity right away because we got to get out of bankruptcy first. The team, not the team, the city.
The city, right.
And we're going to start this effort by going downtown. So Comerica Park and the Tigers, right? And then Ilitch and the Pistons and the Red Wings. So you have all 4 teams in Chicago in Detroit. Yeah, they made the decision to go downtown, which is a great move.
Yeah,
you're right. Great.
Honestly, we talk about players and sports as buys or sells on this show sometimes. There is a screaming buy on Detroit right now as a city. I think you see some really good companies there outside of sports. Shinola, some artisanal brands. There's an artisanal food movement there. It's shaping up to rise from the ashes, and I think the Pistons may seem like they took too long getting back, but they may be right at the pivot here. And I think it's as an American story, it's a good American urban story. But
here's the irony. Dave Bing, who, best of intentions, mayor of Detroit, former Detroit Piston, everybody's Hall of Famer, frankly, a failure as a mayor. Right. And I think a lot of it was because the economic timing wasn't right. He was just like Kevin Johnson, Phoenix Suns, mayor of Sacramento, the guy that drives the new arena back to Sacramento, the timing was right, not the political act.
Right, absolutely. I mean, and again, there were, I mean, these are the forces that happened in Detroit were forces from, labor unions. They were forces from American consumers. They were forces from Chinese factories. They were forces from offshore manufacturing. Dave Bing, great basketball player. Not everybody gets to be Bill Bradley when they when they move into politics, And again, timing wasn't great, but he's a part of this movement back in, and I think it's again, it's a great sign for Detroit, and I think it's part of a trend that behooves America because these location-based things. Like again, I come from a city, Brooklyn, which essentially is as big as most of these cities. That didn't have a major league team for the better part of 40 years, right? And now we have two. We have the Islanders and we have the Nets. And building that arena meant a lot to that area. And it involved a lot of community opposition. There, and I'd love to hear from you. Like, what's the important? I mean, these arenas and teams drive a tangential economy or a secondary economy that's immense, right?
Yeah, and they're catalysts. They don't do it themselves. The argument gets crossways when you look at a stadium and you say that's going to be the messiah, especially one in the suburbs. A football stadium's used 10 days a year plus other mega events, and they stay suburban, and not a whole lot happens around them automatically. Baseball stadium downtown, now you're talking. Arena 200 days a year, you're absolutely talking, and it's really up to the politicians to design a development opportunity to take advantage of that. That's why Ratner and his folks and the deal with Atlantic Yards is so important in Brooklyn, because it takes one of the few catalysts we have and makes the deal happen. It's ironic that when the WPA was used by Roosevelt to get us out of the recession/depression, what did they do? They built they built a lot of stuff, but they also built stadiums, And so it is interesting that that's historic, and now we see stadiums as this symbol of wealthy people who could otherwise afford it. It is not an issue, and I'll go to my grave with this one. I don't care how many people disagree. It's not an issue of who can afford to build it. It's an issue of what it does if it's done right.
Right, absolutely. I mean, you see the areas, and again, I remember, I talk about the Jake a lot, because I remember when, there was a shopping mall that led to the Jake, right? Like a promenade of stores and economic activity. You see the same thing developing around the Barclays Center. And if Detroit gets a little taste of that, and you're bringing in a relatively affluent fan base, that's not a bad thing for the community. And it's economic development. Tell me, like you've done a lot of these deals. What do you think? What was the single biggest transformation that you witnessed in your experience doing these?
Oklahoma City, by far.
Yeah.
They went from a cultural wasteland with no water, a dust bowl, to a referendum that decided to build 9 facilities, including an arena and a stadium, without the promise of an NBA team or an NHL team because they were too small. Now they get one. Now they got a 55-story skyscraper and about $6 billion of economic activity. So, to me,
and talk about timing.
It's not a cookie cutter.
If we could talk about timing on that, I mean, Hurricane Katrina proved that Oklahoma City could support a franchise, right? Because I forget the New Orleans team that was. They change their names every few years, but they went and played there, right?
Yeah, Jazz, then Hornets. Remember Hornets,
right,
and then they went back. Charlotte got an expansion team, and they retook the name Hornets because it's the Queen City.
Right, and then New Orleans became the Pelicans. But whoever it was went to Oklahoma City and played those games and relocated to Oklahoma City for home games, right? And
then they were the pre-Pelicans, right? And then the Pelicans became the Pelicans. But it is a fortuitous merger of timing.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have this stuff if it's just one guy wanted to build a facility. It takes a lot of effort and some vision. And the same kind of thing, segue for a minute into one of the other reasons you do this, economic development. Another reason is tourism, hotels, special events. So in the next 2 months, we're going to resolve finally the issues of the Los Angeles Raiders / Oakland Raiders / Los Angeles Rams / San Diego Rams Raiders. There are 2 teams that need to finish their deals, the Oakland Raiders and the San Diego Chargers. I think one goes to L.A. and joint ventures with the Rams, and the other one either stays in Oakland or goes to Vegas. Now, if it's Vegas, it's hotel-driven and it's tourism-driven. So it's interesting. See what happens.
Right. Well, first off, if I don't hear about the Raiders and the Los Angeles Football Stadium again before I leave this earth, it'll be too soon. it's starting to be tiresome at this point. But again, you look at an LA team, and what does that mean for infrastructure? What does that mean for traffic? How do you what public money goes into making that stadium less than a giant parking lot on Sunday afternoons? And it's an interesting point for these teams because Raiders are on an upswing. The Chargers are where they always are, like break-even team, break-even record, break-even quarterback, break-even existence. And
yeah, exactly.
What's the location change going to really mean for the franchise? Again, unless they commit to putting a better product out there and get some separation in the business sense from the other franchises.
Yeah, and by the way, Mark Davis, it's an interesting concept because, remember, the Raiders came into the American Football League for $1,200. Right. Now the franchise is probably, depending on whether you believe Forbes or not, worth about $1.8 billion. So you got some tax base issues, and you got to figure out how to dispose of the asset or deal with it for estate planning, and the family's been dysfunctional, and the only way they can make it healthy is if they get a big injection of cash. So is it going to be an Oakland deal? Maybe not. Is it Vegas? I'm not sure. But you know what? We've all heard the Los Angeles Raiders and moving to Vegas too much. So Vegas. Maybe that'll be the last time.
We'll have you make a prediction on it in your first podcast of 2017.
Deal.
We'll make it.
Perfect.
We'll hold you
perfect.
to it. Yeah.
Hold me to it. I can't wait. But the other segue, which is interesting, is what other benefit is there from a franchise for a community? And we've done, and maybe backed by popular demand, a little of it. The Green Bay Packers story was so good at the beginning of the year. Now they're still struggling for a playoff spot. They're still relevant. And Green Bay Packers are like, and Lambeau Field is like a museum. It is not a pro sports franchise because the city's only 120,000.
It's a theme
and
park.
the whole idea of what it
right?
means to a community is way beyond everything else.
Yeah. It really is. It's a way of life. It's like it's like a town that's run by one religion,
Yeah.
And it is very much a theme park to the history and to the ethos of the Packers.
Now to the special relationship between Green Bay and the Packers. My conversation with Green Bay Mayor Jim Schmidt.
Your Honor.
It's nice to see you again.
I haven't seen you since the U.S. Conference of Mayors we do on a regular basis.
Right.
You have a special position at the U.S. Conference of Mayors anyway because the sports committee, sports advisory group, is a group whose mayors can participate if they have a pro sports franchise in town, in Dallas and New York and everybody else. And here is the mayor of 100 and some odd thousand population town, and you are royalty basically. So it's a great honor for a great individual, but you must be really proud of leading a city with the Green Bay Packers in it.
Yeah, we are. We know we're blessed. It's special, right? I mean, like Mark said, by far we're the smallest size city to really have an NFL franchise, and not only an NFL franchise, but one that's very successful. Yeah. You look at, talk about the economics, but like Mark said, just the people who come and take tours. I mean, those aren't local people. We had 175,000 people just this year come and take tours, and we take a lot of pride in the Packers too. I think it's just great for the community to have. It's great to have a franchise, but it's also great to have a winning franchise. Yeah. So yeah, it's awesome, and we as mayors, as you know, because you're so involved in the U.S. Conference. Thanks for all you do for the conference,
great.
But it's economics too. I mean, it's pride in economics, and be it baseball, basketball, but I think the NFL is probably the ultimate franchise.
Ultimate franchise, and I can say it, and he can't and won't or doesn't have to, because that group of mayors at that level is a very interesting dynamic because they all get along very well, but it's equivalent to a Saturn plant vying to move from one city to another, or a widget manufacturer, or whatever it is. And so the mayor of Seattle and the mayor of Oklahoma City will be cordial, but believe me, they almost came to blows when the Sonics left. You don't get into that because you clearly, legally, won't get into that, can't get into that. It's kind of in a refreshing perspective.
It is, because I think the mayors of who have private single owners, I think you live with that threat. I mean, I felt bad for Mayor Slay when the Rams moved, and I'm sure that I think they have a plan going forward. But you know, and I don't. That doesn't have to keep me awake at night. That the Packers are going to move, and that's healthy for the community. And but again, that's come from years, 91 years of supporting each other as well. But you're right, and I think there's still, you hear the rumors too at some of those mayors' conferences of somebody might be moving here or lobbying for this, and we don't have that here in Green Bay, and I'm glad.
But it is interesting because the dynamic of a public-private partnership is consistent, and you do that here, and you respect the fact what NFL economics really means, even though this stock share piece raises money. Mayor Jaden, I guess, one of your predecessor, was on the point of the Brown County sales tax, I guess it was, to introduce the dollars for the original renovation in 2003, a while ago.
Yeah, I'm not so sure. I want to say that we had a stadium board that I was vice president of. I think that was really led by the public.
Yeah.
This 0.5% sales tax, which generated about $18 million a year, just from our little county.
And the point, not really who did it and who didn't, who takes credit for it, but the point is that for that to be approved, people in the region had to understand that this is a iconic legacy item that's worth protecting, and it wasn't really billionaire owners threatening to move. They didn't have that leverage, but you approved it basically close, but it led to the renovation.
Hey, you think about that, Rick.
Yeah.
The people of Greater Green Bay or Brown County voted for a sales tax. I mean, that means everything that we bought was going to be 0.5% more for the foreseeable future, and they did that, and I think they really understood that. Look, I really want to vote a tax increase for myself. Probably not, but then you look at the economics and you look at the pride of the community and just the partnership that we've had with Bob Harlan, who was the president at that time.
Mark,
right, and with Mark Murphy now. I think everybody would tell you now they voted for it, but it was closer than we thought.
And again, just to hammer home the point for an international audience, it's not easy, but the whole threat of moving an industry is always an important consideration when you lobby for subsidies or some kind of support from the public. That isn't here, and yet the Brown County voters voted to make sure that this infrastructure was continued to be perpetuated for the foreseeable future, which was amazing and unique.
It really was, and I think the other reason that we passed that, and that why some communities may struggle with that, is we don't have that wealthy owner. And look, I'm all about making money, but there just wasn't that. I don't know if it's animosity, but there wasn't that jealousy, right, of one individual owner. You're an owner, I'm an owner, and our kids are. And I think people are like, we're okay with the money going to this public ownership versus an individual. So it was healthy for Green Bay.
Are you an owner too?
I am. Oh yeah. I'm like Mark said. People who make money on this are the framers, but I've got stock certificate framed, hanging in my office.
Those kind of, not the Constitution framers, the picture framers.
No, I'm talking about the picture framers.
That's, ladies and gentlemen. Do you have more equity than I do? Do you have more voting rights? No, we're the same. Is
we're
that
the
right?
same. We're the same. That's the beauty of the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, it is. So, what I started with here was kind of interesting. When you put the global franchises in perspective, and Forbes' numbers are pretty compelling. It's Real Madrid, it's the Cowboys, but the Packers are right in the middle of the list of the top 50 franchises worldwide. How does that make you feel as Mayor of Green Bay?
That's incredible, right? I mean, a city our size, and it's I've been to a lot of cities like you, but I mean, 104,000 people they're in the municipality, and about 200,000 people in the metro area, and to have a franchise that wins, plus the value that Forbes said it holds, that's incredible from a marketing perspective. Often when we're recruiting businesses or educational facilities, everybody knows Green Bay, and that's a good place to start. We don't have to explain who we are, and I think sometimes they see too much of the Packers, but we parlay that, and we tell people, international people that come in, as well as people throughout the United States, that the Packers' values are the Green Bay's values. I mean, we love to win, but I mean, it's focused on families, community, and I think businesses like that, the same structure of having this community partnership. And, the Packers have led that since 1919, which is incredible.
So hard for others to quantify with the emotion that a mayor, an experience that a mayor would have on this one. Obvious but harder to quantify. Industry relocation, quality of life, feeling good about a community. How important are the Packers?
Yeah, and it's right up there. I think people need to understand the Green Bay is more than 10 games a year, right. And as Mark said, this facility is utilized pretty much every day. I'm out here a lot for charity fundraisers, for meetings, but that civic pride. It's like the Green Bay Symphony, our children's museum. I mean, people love to have ownership of what the community's all about. Our university, which is a D1 school, our medical college. And you put the Green Bay Packers right in there. That we're very proud of this, and not only would never take it for granted. I mean, I think that's healthy for the community. And on the other hand, I do want to say that, and I was here when they weren't as successful, and I mean, people can have a bad Monday, but we got to move on as well. Right. But it's just
been a bad 2 decades.
They did. They did.
Sorry.
That was tough.
Yeah. Sorry, bad 2 decades. Everybody in this room is agreeing with me. Don't look the other way.
All right, but we still have more champions than anyone else.
Clearly,
so,
by far, by the way. And so, at the end of the day, do the Green Bay Packers fit into your business development advocacy strategy around the country as well?
And I think as much as we love football and the pride of the Packers and Bart Starr and all that, it is a business, and it's an economic catalyst for us. I mean, I hope you can take your viewers and kind of show them the development that's going on. I mean, this. I've known you for maybe 10 years, but I mean, 50 years ago, this was a cornfield here, and you just look at the development and 5 expansions, and now what's going on with some new hotels, some new businesses here across the street, and you're really taking a property and increasing the value all around here, and then. There's this whole residual effect too with tourists that come in and go other places and stay here, and so and it's been good. And as a recruitment tool, we have a lot of partnerships. I mean, Mark Murphy and I have both gone and called on businesses together, and what a partnership that is. And so I mean, we love the game of football, but as the mayor, I see it much more than that. Is this whole economic development and tourism dollars, and really just elevating the presence of the city of Green Bay.
When you do step down, whenever that is, are you running again?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm in my 4th term. I'll be the longest-serving mayor in Green Bay's history, and it's.
Are you term limited?
No.
Oh, so you can run for another 5 or 6 terms if you want. How's your golf game?
It's getting better. It's getting better.
Right.
It's getting better.
And you get more shares if you win?
No.
So there's no incentive to do anything more.
They just.
Right.
The incentive I have is to have happy constituents, and the Packers help that.
Good for you. That's as good as I could get to get Mayor Schmidt to commit or not commit, but he is a classic politician and also a good friend. Thank you very much for
Thank
that.
you.
Really
I'm glad
appreciate
you're here.
it. So let me just conclude by telling you that we are in a special place. We've been in a special place, and people didn't know about it. And from basically 1919, this has been a special franchise. When it was involved in the old AFPA with teams like Pottstown and others, nobody really knew what that meant. But they survived, and nobody else did. But they also survived and wrote their own rules. And the rules for an international audience are the envy, by the way, of every North American sports franchise. Why? Well, because it's stability, it's community ownership, it's a business partnership. Whether this mayor wasn't any good or not, he is. But the bottom line is that this community and this team and this position in the NFL is an incredibly unique business, and very happy to be part of it.
Thanks for listening to this edition of Keeping Score. I'm Rick Horrow. The producer of the show, Alex Cohen. Associate producer, Bethel Habte. Assistance provided by Tanner Simpkins and Carlos Waddick. And the executive editor of Reuters Digital, Dan Colarusso.